"Excuse me, sir. The service entrance is downstairs." Celeste Vale said it loudly enough for the entire ballroom to hear. Then she placed a silver serving tray into Marcus Reed's hands and smiled as if she had just delivered the punch line of the year. The people around her laughed. Marcus looked down at the tray, then back at the woman he had once been married to for 12 years. "I'm not working tonight," he said. Celeste's new husband, Preston, raised his champagne glass. "That's what everybody says when they're between jobs." More laughter rolled through the room. Celeste touched the lapel of Marcus's plain navy suit. "You came through the front door dressed like this. Marcus, this is a $5,000 a plate charity gala. At least tell me you parked the catering truck somewhere discreet." Marcus did not answer. He simply set the tray on a nearby table, straightened the small brass bust token attached to his key ring, and looked toward the ballroom entrance. His wife was late. The governor was later. And neither Celeste nor Preston had any idea that the quiet black man they were humiliating had just signed the largest privately backed clean energy infrastructure agreement in Georgia history. They also did not know the gala's final announcement had his name on it, or that Preston's name was buried inside a sealed investigative file that was about to be opened before midnight. Celeste lifted a microphone from the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "before we celebrate the people building Atlanta's future, let's recognize a man who has spent 25 years pretending he would be one of them." Marcus stood beneath the chandeliers while 200 guests turned to look at him. Celeste smiled. The room laughed. And somewhere behind the closed doors, a security officer whispered into his sleeve, "Governor's motorcade has arrived." Have you ever watched someone celebrate 5 minutes before their entire life changed? Comment where you are watching from, and let's go back 3 days. On Wednesday morning, Marcus Reed sat alone inside Bay 4 of an old transit maintenance depot on the west side of Atlanta. The depot had been abandoned for nearly 11 years. Pigeons had claimed the rafters. Rainwater had stained the concrete walls. 3 broken buses sat in the far corner like tired animals that had finally been allowed to stop moving. Marcus had spent the first 6 years of his adult life inside that building. Back then, he had been a city bus mechanic with grease in the lines of his hands and a lunchbox that smelled permanently of onions. He had repaired engines beneath fluorescent lights while supervisors walked by without learning his name. He had worked nights, weekends, Christmas mornings, and one memorable 4th of July when the temperature inside the depot reached 106 degrees. Now the building belonged to him, not personally. Marcus had never cared much about owning things just so he could point at them. It belonged to Reed Power and Transit, the company he had started with a second-hand service van, 3 borrowed battery chargers, and $11,000 he had been saving for a house. The city had sold the depot to his company for $1 under a redevelopment agreement. In exchange, Marcus had promised to turn it into the largest electric bus manufacturing and apprenticeship campus in the Southeast. The project had taken 4 years of planning, 18 months of negotiations, and enough meetings to make a patient man question the value of language. On that gray Wednesday morning, the final agreement arrived on his phone, signed by all parties. The state pension fund, 2 private energy investors, the City Transportation Authority, and Reed Power and Transit had closed a combined $680 million financing package. The deal valued Marcus's company at just over $1.4 billion. He still owned 58%. The numbers meant he had become extraordinarily wealthy. The building meant more. When the campus opened, it would train 800 apprentices every year. Most would come from neighborhoods where people were used to seeing construction cranes outside their windows without ever being invited to operate one. Marcus stared at the message for nearly a minute. Then he put his phone in his pocket and walked across the depot floor. He stopped beneath a rusted sign that still read "Safety is everybody's job." His father had stood beneath that same sign 32 years earlier. Samuel Reed drove the number 21 bus from West End to Memorial Drive for 27 years. He carried a brass transit token in his pocket even after the city stopped using tokens, and he believed every machine had a sound it made before it failed. "Most people only listen after the breakdown," he used to tell Marcus. A good mechanic listens while everything still looks fine. Samuel died before Marcus started the company. The token now hung from Marcus's key ring. Whenever a room became too loud, Marcus touched it and remembered to listen for what other people missed. His phone buzzed again. This time the message came from his wife. "Naomi, did it close?" "Marcus, it closed." 3 dots appeared immediately. "Naomi, I am proud of you. Not the valuation, the apprentices." Marcus smiled. That was why he loved Dr. Naomi Reed. She was one of the few people in his life who always found the part that mattered. Naomi was 44, a black emergency physician at Grady Hospital with a calm voice, sharp eyes, and no patience for excuses. They met after a teenage apprentice suffered a severe asthma attack at Marcus's workshop. Naomi treated the boy, then found Marcus still beside the family at 3 in the morning. "You are not his father," she said. "No. Then why are you still here?" "He came to work for me healthy." Naomi never forgot the answer. 6 months later they had dinner, and 2 years after that they married in her mother's church garden. Marcus told her everything about his company. He told her almost nothing about Celeste, not because the marriage had meant nothing, because it had once meant too much. The invitation to the gala waited unopened in his email for 9 days. The event was called Bright Futures Atlanta, an annual fundraiser for youth housing and job placement. This year, Celeste and Preston Vale were the honorary chairs. Marcus's company had quietly donated $2 million through a charitable trust. His name was not listed in the program. Governor Evelyn Shaw planned to announce the new transit campus at the end of the evening. The mayor would be there, along with state legislators, union leaders, educators, and half the business community. Marcus had no interest in attending. Then Vivian Cole called him. Vivian had known Marcus since the 7th grade and had never allowed success, money, marriage, divorce, or geography to change the volume of her opinions. "You are going," she said. "I donate without needing to attend." "This is not about the donation." "It sounds like it is about the donation. It is about you hiding every time a room might remind you of Celeste." Marcus leaned against an old workbench. "I do not hide. You skipped Erin's retirement dinner because she was invited. I had a board meeting." "You moved the board meeting." Marcus said nothing. Vivian continued. "You built a company with offices in 4 states, but one woman with expensive teeth can still make you rearrange a calendar. That is disrespectful to her dentist." "I am serious." "So am I." "Those teeth are excellent." Vivian sighed. "Go to the gala, take your wife, stand in the same room and discover that your life did not end because Celeste left it." Marcus looked across the abandoned depot. A stripe of daylight cut through a cracked high window and landed on the floor where he had once changed brake drums at midnight. "What if I have already discovered that? Then prove it by not needing to prove anything." That sentence stayed with him, so he accepted. He did not know Celeste had spent the previous month telling people he might appear. She called him the mechanic whenever she mentioned him, though she knew he had not worked for the city in nearly 2 decades. She told Preston that Marcus ran a small electrical repair business. She told her friends the divorce had rescued her from a lifetime of unpaid bills, work boots in the hallway, and impossible dreams. Some of that was revision. Some of it was cruelty. Most of it was fear wearing makeup. Celeste had known Marcus before the company, before the investors, before the magazine profiles he refused to sit for. She had known him when his ambition looked unreasonable because it had not yet become profitable. They married at 26. Marcus worked nights at the depot and studied engineering in the mornings. Celeste worked in real estate and wanted a larger life immediately. Marcus wanted one too, but he believed large things were built slowly. Celeste treated slowness like evidence of failure. At first they loved each other in ordinary ways: grocery lists, Sunday laundry, private jokes, and plans written on envelopes. Then comparisons entered the marriage. A friend bought a townhouse. A cousin traveled to Paris. A coworker arrived in a Mercedes. Every milestone became a question Marcus was expected to answer. When he left the transit authority to start his company, he used nearly all their savings. For 11 months, the business barely survived. He repaired generators, rewired warehouses, and converted delivery vans for anyone willing to pay half in advance. Celeste watched the savings disappear. When Marcus landed his first major contract, she asked why it had taken so long. When he hired his fifth employee, she asked why he still drove an old truck. When he came home carrying grocery store flowers after winning a city bid, she looked at the grease on his sleeve and told him not to sit on the white sofa. Marcus mistook endurance for devotion. He believed love meant absorbing every sharp edge until the other person felt safe. The marriage ended beside two open suitcases. Celeste said she had met someone who understood the life she deserved. Marcus already knew about Preston. Restaurant receipts, late calls, and one photograph on a shared tablet had told him months earlier. "Are you going to fight for me?" she asked. Not with hope, with curiosity. She wanted to know whether she could still make him beg. "No," Marcus said. He gave her the front door. For years, Celeste told people he had not fought because he never loved her. The truth was that he had loved her long after she stopped treating that love carefully. After she left, the company nearly collapsed. A major client delayed payment, 2 employees quit, and Marcus spent 3 months sleeping in a folding chair inside his first workshop because he could not afford both rent and night security. That was the version of him Celeste remembered. She froze him there permanently. People often do that when your growth threatens the story they tell about why they left. By the time Saturday arrived, Marcus had built a life Celeste would not have recognized even if she had been standing inside it. He owned a quiet house near Cascade Heights, though the bank and the county records technically did most of the announcing. He drove a 7-year-old black pickup because it started every morning. He still carried the brass bus token. He still visited the first workshop every Friday. And he still avoided rooms where success was treated like theater. Naomi understood his discomfort, but she refused to let it control him. "You do not have to impress anyone tonight," she told him as they dressed. "I know. You do not have to correct anyone. I know. You do not have to rescue Celeste from the consequences of her own mouth." Marcus looked at her. Naomi fastened an earring. "That last one was for me." She planned to join him after finishing a hospital foundation meeting. Governor Shaw's office had asked Naomi to sit on a statewide emergency response board, and the meeting had been added that afternoon. "I may be 40 minutes late," she said. "I can survive 40 minutes. I know you can survive it. I am asking whether the ballroom can." Marcus kissed her forehead and left. The Gala occupied the top floor of the Meridian Hotel, a glass tower overlooking downtown Atlanta. Valets moved beneath white lights. Photographers waited behind a velvet rope. Inside, a string quartet played near a wall covered in sponsor logos. Marcus arrived alone in a plain navy suit with no tie. At the registration table, a volunteer handed Marcus a gold card. "Mr. Reed, your table is in the front section. The back is fine." He had taken 3 steps into the ballroom when Celeste saw him. She wore a silver gown. Preston stood beside her in a white dinner jacket, smiling like a luxury condominium advertisement. "Excuse me, sir. The service entrance is downstairs." The people nearest her laughed before they were sure it was a joke. Celeste lifted an empty tray from a waiter and pressed it into Marcus's hands. "Guests use the front doors, but since you are here, table 12 needs water." Marcus set the tray down. "I am not working tonight." Preston raised his glass. "That is what everybody says when they are between jobs." Celeste inspected Marcus's plain suit. "This is a $5,000 a plate gala. I was invited." "By whom?" "The electrical union. Among others." She turned to her friends. "When we were married, he used to say he would reinvent transportation." Preston offered his hand. "Celeste says you fix buses." "I used to." "What do you do now?" "I build systems that move people." Preston glanced at Celeste. "So buses." Marcus almost smiled. Celeste noticed the brass token on his key ring. "You still carry that old thing?" "My father's. You always did love broken down things." The sentence landed badly. 2 guests stopped smiling. Across the room, Vivian Cole saw the tray, saw Celeste, and closed her eyes for one long second as if asking heaven for patience and receiving a limited supply. Then she arrived. "Celeste," she said. "You have been speaking for 4 minutes and somehow the room has become less intelligent." Celeste laughed, Vivian still protecting him. "No, Marcus does not need protection. I am protecting you from becoming tomorrow's favorite video." Several phones were already raised. Celeste glanced at them and smiled wider. Some people see cameras and become cautious. Celeste saw cameras and became herself more completely. She took Marcus by the arm and guided him toward a circle near the stage. "Everyone, you remember my ex-husband." Marcus removed her hand gently. Celeste continued. "When we were married, he used to tell me he was going to reinvent public transportation." "Did he?" someone asked. "Well, he once replaced the alternator in my Honda." The group laughed. Marcus looked toward the entrance. No Naomi, no governor. Only a pair of security officers checking the doors. Celeste followed his gaze, waiting for somebody. "My wife." There was a small silence. Then Celeste laughed so suddenly that champagne trembled in her glass. "Your wife?" "Yes." Preston looked amused. "You did not mention that." "Because I did not know," Celeste said. "Nobody knows. That does not make it untrue." "Oh, Marcus," she shook her head with theatrical sadness. "You could have just said you came alone." "I did come alone. My wife is joining me." "What is her name?" "Naomi." "Naomi what?" "Reed." Celeste stared at him. For one moment something uncertain crossed her face. Then she recovered. "Convenient." Marcus knew that look. It was the look Celeste wore whenever reality refused to cooperate with the story she preferred. She turned to her friends. "Apparently Marcus has invented a wife." "I did not invent her. Do you have a picture?" Marcus's phone was in his inside pocket. He did not reach for it. Celeste smiled triumphantly. "Exactly." Vivian stepped forward. "He does not owe you evidence of his marriage." "No, but this is fun." "That is because cruelty is the only hobby you ever practiced consistently." Preston moved between them, still smiling. "Let's keep it light." Vivian looked at him. "You should hope everything stays light, Preston." The words were simple. His reaction was not. His eyes flicked toward her, then toward a woman standing near the silent auction display. Her name was Lena Brooks, a state procurement investigator and former classmate of Marcus S. She wore a black suit, no jewelry, and the expression of someone who had spent her professional life listening to lies become nervous. Preston knew her. More precisely, he knew her name from 3 certified letters his attorney had advised him not to answer personally. Lena watched him for half a second, then looked away. Preston's hand tightened around his glass. Marcus noticed. A good mechanic listens while everything still looks fine. The first warning is rarely smoke. Usually it is a change in sound. Preston's laugh had changed. Celeste did not hear it. She was too busy searching for a larger audience. The program began at 8. Marcus's assigned seat was at the governor's table. He chose the back beside Vivian. "You know they are looking for you up front," she said. "The back has better exits." On stage, Celeste welcomed the crowd with a speech about dignity and overlooked communities. Preston followed with remarks about ethical development. Lena Brooks did not clap. The final auction item was introduced beneath a large rendering of the abandoned transit depot, transformed into a bright manufacturing and training campus. "An exclusive tour of Atlanta's future electric transit center," the auctioneer announced, hosted by the project's founder. Bidding rose from $10,000 to $75,000. Celeste stared at the screen. She had never seen the project. Preston had. A month earlier, his company had tried to obtain nonprofit land beside the depot through a shell corporation. When the nonprofit refused, anonymous zoning threats followed. Marcus's legal team found the connection and sent the records to the state. Lena had spent 6 weeks following the money. Preston looked toward her. She looked back. Celeste took the microphone. "Before we close, perhaps our resident transportation expert should comment." The spotlight found Marcus. "Stand up, Marcus," she said. "You spent years repairing city buses. Tell us how many projects like this become expensive fantasies." The laughter was weaker now. Marcus stood. "Any advice for the mystery founder?" Celeste asked. "Yes, build the training center before the executive offices." A few guests applauded. Celeste frowned. "That is all. That is enough." He sat, but she kept the microphone. "Years ago, Marcus quit a stable city job because he believed he would become an industrialist. He emptied our savings and nearly cost us our home. When I accepted that dreams do not pay bills, I left." The ballroom went quiet. She did not mention the graduate tuition Marcus had paid, the equipment he repaired for her family, or the months he skipped meals to cover payroll. Marcus remembered bringing her to his first workshop after completing a fleet conversion. He had expected her to see a beginning. She looked at the concrete floor and exposed wiring. "This looks like failure with extension cords," she had said. For years, the sentence followed him into every hard month. On stage, Celeste raised her glass. "To everyone who knows the difference between ambition and delusion." Marcus stood again. "Celeste." She smiled. "Yes, you should stop." "Why?" "Because you are confusing this room's patience with agreement." The silence no longer belonged to her. Preston stepped forward. "Let's not turn a charity gala into therapy." From the aisle, Lena said, "That would still be cheaper than turning public land into private profit." Every face turned. Preston's smile disappeared. Lena walked toward the stage. Vale Development created Southland Community Partners to acquire nonprofit land beside the transit depot at 40% of its appraised value. When the board refused, someone connected to Southland threatened invented zoning violations. "This is not the place," Preston said. "You were comfortable discussing ethics here. My attorney will contact your office." "He already has, mostly to request extensions." Celeste stared at him. "Preston, what is she talking about?" "Nothing." Lena held his eyes. "You approved the consulting invoices." Preston's jaw moved, but no answer came. Then the ballroom doors opened. 2 state troopers entered first, followed by Governor Evelyn Shaw, Mayor Daniel Price, and Naomi Reed. Naomi wore a deep green dress beneath a black coat. She crossed the room without looking at Celeste, Preston, or the cameras. She went straight to Marcus. "I am sorry," she said, touching his cheek. "The governor's meeting ran late." "You made it." "I said I would." Recognition moved through the ballroom. Many guests knew Naomi from her emergency work at Grady Hospital and the free trauma clinic she helped establish. The mayor smiled at Marcus. "Mr. Reed, we have been looking for you at the front table." Every head turned. Governor Shaw shook Marcus's hand. "Congratulations." Celeste lowered the microphone. The governor stepped onto the stage. "Tonight Atlanta's future stops being a rendering," she said. "This week, the state completed a $680 million financing agreement with Reed Power and Transit." Applause rose. "The company will transform the abandoned Westside Depot into an electric bus manufacturing and workforce training campus, creating more than 3,000 jobs and 800 paid apprenticeships each year." She turned toward Marcus. "None of it would exist without the company's founder and chief executive, Marcus Reed." For 1 second the ballroom was silent. Then everyone stood. Some applauded because they understood. Others applauded because they had laughed earlier and hoped volume could erase memory. Marcus stayed beside Naomi as she squeezed his hand. Celeste stared at the man she had just called delusional. The governor raised a hand. "One more announcement. Bright Futures received an anonymous $2 million gift for apprentice housing and transportation. The donor refused public credit, so I asked his wife for permission." Marcus looked at Naomi. She smiled. "You can be humble tomorrow." The room laughed warmly. Governor Shaw revealed Marcus as the donor and the applause returned. Celeste stepped down from the stage. "Why did you never tell anyone?" she asked. "People who needed to know knew. You let me say all of that. You had several chances to stop. You could have corrected me." "I did." Her shame changed into anger. "You embarrassed me." Marcus looked at the microphone and the abandoned serving tray. "No, you showed the room how you already saw me. The room stayed long enough to see you." Behind her, Preston moved toward the exit. Lena blocked his path. "Investigators outside would like to speak with you." She handed him a preservation order covering his company's records and devices. Celeste turned. "Investigators?" "This is a misunderstanding," Preston said. One of the state officials entered the room. Celeste's voice cracked. "Tell me she is lying." Preston looked around, searching for the cheapest exit. "I handled the business," he said. "You wanted the lifestyle. What does that mean?" "You wanted the house, travel, and tables in rooms like this. You never asked what paid for them. I trusted you." "No, you preferred not knowing." The words hit harder than anything Marcus could have said. Preston requested his attorney and was escorted from the ballroom. The crowd parted without a word. Celeste remained near the stage as the people who had surrounded her began finding other places to stand. Later, Marcus stepped onto the terrace for air. Atlanta shone below him. Celeste followed. "I really believed you failed," she said. "I know. Why are you not angry?" "I was for a long time." She waited. "When you left, I treated your opinion like a verdict," Marcus said. "Every mistake sounded like your voice. Your cruelty hurt, but the worst part was how long I kept using it against myself." "I was cruel." "Yes." She seemed surprised he did not soften the truth. "Did you love me?" "Yes." "Then why did you let me leave?" "Because love is not ownership. I wanted you to fight." "No, you wanted proof that you could still make me beg." Celeste looked through the doors at Naomi. "Does she hate me?" "Naomi treats emergencies. She does not hate people for bleeding. She just expects them to stop swinging the knife." Celeste almost smiled. "I am sorry." Marcus believed she meant it in that moment. But regret was only an alarm. Some people woke up, others pressed snooze. "What happens to me now?" she asked. "That depends on what you build next." He did not offer rescue. Years earlier he would have carried guilt that did not belong to him. Now he understood that mercy did not require reopening a closed door. "Take care of yourself," he said. Then he returned to his wife. They left before midnight. Rain had begun to fall over downtown, turning the streets into long ribbons of red and gold. Naomi drove because Marcus had spent the evening carrying more than he wanted to admit. For several blocks, neither spoke. Then Naomi glanced at him. "You were very calm." "I was holding a serving tray in my mind." She laughed. "Vivian told me she was holding a chair." Marcus looked out at the city. "There was a time I would have told Celeste everything the moment she insulted me. Revenue, contracts, valuation. I would have thrown every number at her until she admitted she was wrong." "What stopped you?" "I realized her admission would not repair anything." Naomi reached across the console and took his hand. Marcus turned the brass token between his fingers. "When she left, I kept the first rejection letter my company received," he said. "It is framed in the old workshop. I have seen it. I told people it reminded me to keep going. That was only half true. I also kept it because she wrote one sentence across the bottom." Naomi waited. "She wrote, 'This is who you really are.'" For years, Marcus had treated the rejection as fuel. Every expansion, contract, and repaired vehicle became an argument with that sentence. But arguments keep the other person in the room, even after they have gone. "What will you do with it?" Naomi asked. Marcus watched the wipers clear the windshield. "Take the frame down. Throw the letter away." "No, put it in the training archive with the early invoices and failed designs." Naomi smiled. "History instead of identity." "Exactly." At home, the porch light waited warm against the rain. Marcus paused before going inside. He understood then that closing a chapter did not mean pretending it had never happened. It meant placing it where it belonged. Behind him, labeled honestly, no longer allowed to hold the pen. By sunrise, the gala existed in two versions. The official version celebrated a historic investment in clean transportation. The internet's version showed a woman handing her black ex-husband a serving tray before learning he owned the company building the city's future. The clip reached millions of views. Marcus refused interviews titled "The Best Revenge." "The project is not revenge," he told his communications director. "Buses need batteries, not opinions." Public donations to apprentice housing tripled. The investigation into Vale development lasted 9 months. Lena's team uncovered fraudulent contracts, coercive land deals, and illegal campaign contributions. Preston pleaded guilty to conspiracy and wire fraud, lost his license, and received prison time. Celeste was not charged. Her marriage ended, the house was sold, and the social circle she had built disappeared. Months later, she took an ordinary job at a housing nonprofit. There were no cameras, honorary titles, or applause. Whether regret became change was now her work to decide. The transit campus opened 18 months later. Solar panels covered the roof. Training rooms filled the east wing. Marcus preserved the original maintenance bays. The rusted "safety is everybody's job" sign, and one broken city bus for students to diagnose. 800 apprentices stood beneath the restored rafters on opening day. Marcus walked to the microphone carrying his father's brass token. "My father drove the number 21 route for 27 years, he said. He believed every machine warns you before it fails. A good mechanic listens while everything still looks fine." He looked across the young faces. Some of you have been judged by the job you have now, the neighborhood you come from, or the person who stopped believing in you. Do not spend your life arguing with people committed to misunderstanding your beginning. Build the middle. Finish the work. Let the result introduce you. Naomi stood in the front row beside Vivian. But success is not becoming rich enough to embarrass people who embarrassed you, Marcus continued. Success is building a door wide enough that someone behind you does not have to beg to enter. The apprentices rose. Weeks later, Marcus received a note from Celeste. Regret is only an alarm. I am trying to wake up. I am sorry. He eventually answered with one sentence. I hope the life you build next is honest. No punishment. No reopened door. The first apprentice class graduated 6 months later, and almost every student received a full-time offer. A silver serving tray from the Gala was mounted inside the apprentice residence hall beneath a plaque. No work is small. No person serving others is beneath you. Be careful who you laugh at. Be more careful who you become while laughing. On the campus's second anniversary, Marcus arrived before dawn and mounted his father's token beneath the old safety sign. Samuel Reed, Route 21. He taught us to listen before the breakdown. His phone buzzed. Naomi had sent a message. Coffee is getting cold. Marcus smiled and walked toward the entrance as hundreds of apprentices came through doors that had once been chained shut. Years earlier, Celeste thought his silence meant he had nothing to say. But Marcus had been speaking in work, patience, consistency, and character. The city eventually understood. By then, he no longer needed it to. The greatest moment of his life was not the governor's announcement, the standing ovation, or Preston's downfall. It was an ordinary morning, walking toward coffee with his wife while young people entered a building that used to be abandoned. No music, no revenge, just doors opening, so choose your side. Was Marcus right to stay calm and let Celeste expose herself, or should he have stopped her humiliation sooner? Drop your answer in the comments, and share this story with someone building a future nobody around them can see yet. Because sometimes the people laughing at your beginning are not predicting your ending. They are only revealing the limits of their imagination.